One of the most essential concepts in building software is the try or do not repeat yourself principle, which emphasizes the importance of reducing repetition within code and design. When you use atomic design to build your layout, you often see that some of the elements are repeating, or you can create them in a way that can be reused again and again. FlutterFlow allows you to implement this concept into your project by creating components. Components in FlutterFlow are reusable elements. You design once and utilize it throughout your app to save time, ensure consistency, and simplify maintenance. Well, let's talk about components benefits. Components offer several key benefits. We talked about consistency. Components provide a consistent look and behavior across your app, reducing the likelihood of discrepancy occurring when the same UI elements are recreated multiple times. Error reduction. Because components minimize design duplication, the risk of errors is significantly reduced. Fixing an issue in a component means fixing it everywhere, leading to fewer bugs and inconsistencies across your app. As your app grows, maintaining a dry code base through the use of components make it easier to scale. Adding or modifying new features becomes more straightforward and less likely to introduce errors. And finally, creating a component once and reusing it across different parts of your app ensures that any design or functionality changes are made in one place. When that component is updated, all instances of it throughout the app automatically reflect those changes. This greatly reduces the effort needed to maintain and update your app, and also it impacts performance by reducing rebuilds by parsing things into their own class and isolating the states. But I talked about class and I mentioned instances. Let me just have a reminder here. In Module 3, we reviewed the class and the instance. Let me just quickly go through that again. We talked about class and how instantiating a class creates an instance of that class. When you add a UI element to your page, you are utilizing widget classes and creating instances of them. For example, icon is a widget class. When you use it in different parts of your applications, you create an instance of the icon widget class and provide different values for each use. Think of classes as templates that outline the structure and features of something you want to create multiple times. Let me give you a visual example. Here is a reusable component called product list card with a specific characters such as an image, product information text, and actions that it should perform when tapped or clicked. Here, we created a class. When you place this product list card in different app pages, each one you add is an instance. For example, in the product list page, we have created an instance called top selling product card for use in the top selling section. Similarly, in the category product list page, we've created an instance called category product card. You can customize each instance of your component to perform different actions or to fit various parts of your app, but they are all start from the template you created, the class. This means you only need to design the product list card once, and then you can reuse and adapt it as needed. Now we have learned what a component is and why we're creating that. Let's see what you're going to learn in this module. First, we're going to start by identifying components, how you can find what needs to be a component in your application. Then we're going to create components. And then you will see how you can utilize the components that you created throughout your application. Next, we're going to see how you can manage the component actions. And finally, we will review the generated code and see how the components are going to be reflected on FlutterFlow generated code. Nice. Without any hesitation, let's get started. Components can be used in various scenarios. Let's look at some of the use cases. For example, you can design a standard button once and reuse it across multiple screens, ensuring a cohesive look throughout your app. When it comes to card designs like product cards, address cards, and shopping cart items, using components allow you to maintain consistency while saving time. Testimonials, image galleries, feature highlights, shopping cart counters, and profile avatars are just a few more frequently repeated elements that can be reused as a component. These are just some examples, but the key is to recognize where to define a component based on reusability and repeating frequency. The one thing is important here, knowing a component's lifecycle is essential after identifying it. This helps you to develop the component more effectively. There are 4 key moments in the lifecycle of a component. We start with creation. This means that when you create a component, it creates the component class. Then you can create an instance by using it on another page or another component. This means that component instances are created as needed, which helps manage resources efficiently and avoid unnecessary overhead. The next step is initialization. At this stage, you might initialize local state variables with initial values or start components animations or set the default values. Actions defined in the onInitialization action trigger are executed during this phase. You're going to learn more about component states in the state management module in module 10. This stage is where a component based on some inside or outside factors is updated, allowing the component to adjust its behavior and appearance accordingly. This factor can vary. Let me give you some example. A shopping cart counter can be updated when several items change from the item counter, or profile setting card can be updated when a title passed to the component from the parent page changes. These updates usually lead to rebuilding, which means re-rendering the component with new values that have been received. And finally, disposal. When a component is no longer needed, it's destroyed. But what does that mean? When a user navigates away from a page or the component is explicitly removed, that's where the disposal is happening. Well, let me give you some examples that you can understand better. If we have a component with a timer running, when you enter a page with this component on that page, the timer starts running. Still, when you navigate away from the page and the component is not used anymore, the timer can stop until the user returns to the page. This component is visible again, and in initialization, you can set a proper timer, and then the timer will run and the component will update when you come back to this page. So that's the flow. But do you need to care about this? In FlutterFlow, most of these lifecycle stages are handled internally by the platform's architecture. However, some methods are exposed so that you can decide what additional configuration to load upon initialization and when to re-render the UI based on the user interaction. So I thought that then understanding this lifecycle could help you to understand better when to do something that is appropriate. Let's go to the next video and then identify and create components together. In FlutterFlow, you have several options for creating a component. You can create a completely blank component from scratch, or you can convert a set of widgets into a component, Or you can use FlutterFlow pre-built templates for components, or even using AI to generate it for you. The components creation is under the page selector tab. As we created the page, we can also do the same for creating a component. After creating a component, by selecting the root widget in a component, you will have several properties available for the component. You can manage both actions and states for the component. In this module, we will see how to configure actions, and in the next module, module 10, we will learn how to handle states for a component. You can change the class name to make the component easier to identify, especially in the generated code. And a component may have parameters. A parameter is a value that can be passed down from a parent entity, such as a page or another component. For example, when you use a product card on a page, you can pass down the value of the product name, price, image, or even a callback. You may ask, what is a callback? A callback is a function or action that you can pass and will be executed when it's called in the component by the component action or function. These parameters makes the component adaptable and dynamic, adjusting to the context in which it is used. All right, nothing beat a demo. Let's go and quickly see how we can put all of the fundamentals into an action. All right, let's see all of the fundamentals in a quick demo. Here is my application so far we created together. So we have product list and order list. And you see that I have an avatar here, but they're not really looking similar. Or I need to copy and paste probably from one page to another page. Here is a perfect example of creating a reusable component. Let's do a reusable component by creating a new component. I'm just going to click on adding a new component. So I just need to select a new component. As you can see, you can have a list of pre-built templates, or you can use create with AI, or let's do a blank one. In this case, I'm going to do a blank one. The component is created, and as you can see, it's appearing under all of these pages with this diamonds icon. If I now go to my diamond component, you'll see that this is listed here. So let me move this component under the profile because that's where it belongs to. Looks good. Let's now create our component. First thing first, I want to create it with circle image. All right, that's it for my design. So let's now go back to my pages. And I'm just going to remove this avatar and also this avatar. So since I am already in my app bar, I'm just going to go and add a container to the lead for this one. Another container in the lead. All right, that's good. So then how can I use this profile avatar? I created, but I need to actually create an instance and use that in this page. You have several options to do that. First thing, I can right click on the container and use the insert widget and filter it by component and then add the component here. All right, that's good. Or you can go to another page, let's say, open the widget tree, and here is my container. I can click on add a child to this widget, filter by component, and there you go. I have the profile avatar. All right, that's good. Another way that you can do also is you can go to the widget palette and filter by the components, and you get the component that you created, and then simply drag and drop to your application. All right, that's very good. Now we have created one component and we are using that in two places. Let me prove you that we are using that in two different places. If I go now on my profile avatar, and if I right click on that, it says find usage. And then if I click on that, it says you're using that in two references found, which is correct. And let's do one more thing. So in fact, I want to do a little bit of padding here because I see that is not really looking very good. Let's see. It's quite big. So let's make it a bit shorter. That's good. If I go back to order list, you see that it changes. And the exact same change will appear on product list page as well. All right, that's very good. Let's make the padding a bit less. All right, that's very good. Now we actually define a component from scratch. What if we already have some elements, like if I go to my product setting, that I can reuse them and convert them to a component? Here is an example. I have this row. In fact, this is going to be a container, which, as you can see, is repeating several times. So if I can make this a component, I can reuse it. But what this component needs is an icon to be passed in, a text, and a callback. Because when I click on this icon button, then something needs to happen, right? And each of these actions are different. And that's where you're defining callback. What I'm going to do in this case, I'm just going to select the container. And then I can right click on that. And you see that in the menu, you have convert to component. Let's do that quickly. And voila, you just have a component. Now we need to make some adjustment. So first thing, we need to define our parameters. We need 3 different parameters as we discussed. First, a leading icon. Then a title. And I'll make it required. And last, a callback. So we call it on tap. So my callback is going to be an action. That's good. These are my parameters. Let's confirm. So I'm going to replace now this icon with the icon that I'm going to receive from the parameters. So if I go to the property panels, under the icon properties, you will see I have this little icon, which I click, I can find the parameters, component parameters. And that's actually where I want to have the leading icons. All right, I'm just going to select that. Beautiful. Now let's select the address. And on the property panels, next to the text, I have the same icon for finding the proper variable to bind to this text. So I'm just going to click on that. And you see under the component parameters, I have title. Since this is required, we need a default value. Let's put it as title. And then my icon button will have an action. So let's not do anything for now because we have another video in this module, which we're going to cover the actions for component. We're going to come back to this later. All right, what just happened? So we created a component product item settings. So if I go back here, you see that is appearing here. I can actually now move this under the profile so that it's more organized. So if I go back to my profile setting, you will see that the first item is appearing as a component profile setting item. So to prove that, I can open my widget tree. And you will see that now I have profile setting with an icon of diamond, which is, this is gonna be a component. And then I have my containers. So I'm just gonna remove the containers. And now I can repeat this several times. The good thing is that now I can go to this component at the first. And on the property panel, if I move down, and as you can see now, I see my parameters, leading icon, title, and on tap. So I'm just gonna go and select the leading icon as map. And we'll change the title to address. And we're gonna keep on tap for now until the next video. So, but you can also define an action here. All right. You can also repeat that for others. Beautiful. We created a reusable component right now. Let me just now go to these components. And if I make any changes right now, let's say I want to change the color of these text to something else, for example, to primary. And if I go back to my profile setting page, all of them, we're going to get the same design. Let's take a look at other pages, see if we can actually identify other components. So I can quickly see that the items in app bar are actually repeating on different pages. So therefore, they are a very good candidate of becoming a component. So in fact, we can just quickly go and convert them to a component. And then move it to the products. And go ahead and replace them. There's one more thing. So if I go to my product list, I'll see that I also have some elements here that they are actually repeating, but I'm actually duplicating them, which means if I make a change here, it does not appear on this one. So that's a perfect scenario for a component. But let's stop here and move on to the next video to see how we can utilize components. So far, we managed to create several components in the previous demo. Let's go back to our demo again. Before we continue, let me just quickly go ahead and turn this column also into a component. So what we're gonna do here right now, I'm just gonna go to the column, make sure in the widget tree I'm selecting the right one, yes. And I can right click also on the widget tree and go to the convert to component. Let's call it product item card. Beautiful. Let's go back to the page selector and open the product list page. I can actually move product item card right now to this folder because it belongs here. Nice. And what we're going to do right now, I have now product item card here. I'm going to go to the widget tree. And now it's located here. I'm going to right click on this one and I'm going to delete it. And we'll repeat that for the other column too. And now I can go ahead and duplicate this. Fantastic. This is all now product item card component. So, well, we can repeat the same for the other one as well. I'm just going to make it a bit simpler for this time. I will remove the top selling completely. We'll select the other one. Top selling. And I will just duplicate it. Let's rename that to new. And one more thing, I can actually change the top selling for this one to new items. All right, now I can even identify that in the widget tree much easier. All right, that's good. You can actually now go ahead and repeat the same for categories as well. Now, I'm going to talk about an important things. So as you can see, I have a list of product item card, which are my components, right? Let's in fact go to the other folder under profile. And I want to remind you for the dynamic list that we created. In fact, right now, I can go to this page and replace this. Let's say I'm going to go and actually here, delete this item. And then I'm going to go and add my profile setting item. Beautiful. So what happens is that we learn that now we are generating this list dynamically. All right, that's good. Now we're actually generating this list with the profile setting item component. So I'm just going to talk about now an option that becomes available, and that is set a unique key. All right, if I go now to the property settings all the way down to the component properties, you will see that I have the unique key option. This is obviously optional, but very important. The unique key here helps the app recognize which tasks are new, which are complete, and which have been removed. This ensures that updates are accurate and specific. And specifically, a unique key is also helping for better efficiency in your application. This leads to better performance and a smoother user experience. So I recommend you, when you have a dynamically generated list like this one that we just did, set a unique key for the first item and set it automatically for rest of the items. For example, here I can go and click on set, and you'll see that I have my profile setting item. Just to remind you, so when you select the profile setting list view, then you're going to have the generate dynamic children. And that's where we define the list. And as of now, it's just a random list. But later in this course, you will see that it's going to be a data from a database or a backend. So if I now go back on my first item in the list, which is going to be dynamically generated, then I will see that I can set a unique key. The option that I have available here is going to be an index in the list. So the index in the item is going to be somehow unique. So I can use that as a unique key, or we can probably use other things. For example, we can use a combined text. Let's say I say, this is going to be my ID, and then I'm going to use the index here. So let's say ID dash the index. So it's going to appear as you can see here, like ID 1 or 0 or 2. So this is going to be a unique key. All right, sounds very good. I'm just going to confirm this right now. And there's, of course, other things that I want to do. You can also pass the parameters. Well, where it is fine for now. We're not going to do that because it's just a random list that we're generating. But the unique key was very important that I wanted to mention. Another benefit of this unique key would be when you have this list and you're scrolling, they are actually going or disappearing from the page and also again reappearing. This unique key also helps that so the changes that is made in that product, let's say setting item or that component, is going to be remembered. So when you return back, everything displays correctly as just you left it. This is going to be important when especially you are dynamically generating a list of items or components. So There's one more thing left, and that's going to be the action for the component as well as passing the callback. Let's go to the next video and see how we can manage the actions and also pass the callback to our component. All right, it's time to go back to our demo and see how you can actually define action for components and also execute the callback that you're going to pass as parameter. So here is my profile setting items where we defined in the component that we're going to pass a callback. And a callback is appearing as an action here in the property panel. I'm going to go and click on opening the action flow editor, and you will see that my trigger type is a callback, which is actually what we are looking for. And I'm going to go and actually add my action. Let's say for the first item, I'm going to navigate to address. Very nice. And for the second one, I want to create a callback that navigates to home page. For the third one, I'm going to go and define a callback that is going to navigate to product list. And for the last one, I'm going to define a callback that goes to, actually doesn't go anywhere. Let's actually use my page action block setting item action, which we already defined in the previous demos. All right, that's very good. So now I define all of my callbacks. And I'm going to show you one more thing. If you go to the project issue, you'll see you have 3 errors. The first one is saying action refers to action block that does not exist. All right, well, we need to fix this. And then another one is saying profile setting item does not specify value for parameter leading icons. And that's correct because we need to fix this. If I click on that, you'll see that now I've not defined anything here. I need to pass and define my icon here, as well as my action. So in this case, I'm just going to say navigate to address list. Let's go to the project. I see I have less. Click on the component parameters. And it's also complaining about does not having a title here because the title is required. We need to pass a title. I'm just going to give it a random name. All right, that's good. The error is gone. There's one more here, but let's have this one here for our reference. We're going to come back to this later. So what we did right now, if I go back to my profile setting item component, you see that I have an icon button. When I select that, I can go to the property panel and go to action, and you see I can create my actions for this component. Okay, what is happening right now? If I open this, it was showing me that it's navigating to a page, but that is not what I'm looking for, right? Because in this case, every component, if you use, is going to navigate to address list, whereas you don't want to do that. You want to actually call the callback that is received from component. Let's review again. So here is my component, and we have an on tab action. And if I go to settings, I already pass an action for this one goes to another page, and an action to this one goes to another page. So if I go back now to my components, I need to fix this action. What we're supposed to do, we need to open the editor. Let me just delete all the actions and need to add a new action. So what we are going to do is we want to execute the callback that is passed here. We're just going to call that. And if you just search for callback, you will receive an execute callback action here. I'm just going to select that. And when you do that, it actually shows you the callback list here. And what is that? That's going to be the on tab parameters. All right, that's fantastic. Let me actually also rename my action to profile item callback action. All right, sounds good. Now what happens is every time a component is clicked, It's actually going to go through this call and execute the function that is passed as a parameter to this component. That is lovely. So there's one more thing I want to show you before we go to test our demo. We just defined an action with Action Flow Editor, but what if you want to create a set of actions and reuse them in different components? And that's where you can create a component level actions in action blocks. The concept of creating action blocks is exactly as what we have done for the app level and page level, except that the scope is going to be to the component level. And fantastic. Let's now go ahead and run our application in test mode to test our profile settings, see if it's working. All right, here is my test mode. Let me go to profile settings. And as you can see right now, we have different icons we passed. And then if I click in on each of these buttons, they need to go to different pages. I'm going to click on this one. It goes to address. I'm going to click on home, go back to home. And I'm going to go to certificate. Well, it goes to where it should. And that's what it does. And everything is working. Very nice. All right, let's go back to the app builder. And you'll see that I have my profile setting now working. But if I go back to my components, let me open the widget tree. And you'll see that what happens is if I go to the action, on the root widget of the component and then click on Action Flow Editor, I'm going to have two or a couple of different trigger types, including uninitialization. We talked about that in the previous videos. And that means when a component is initialized, you can do some actions. For example, you can go ahead and fetch some data from database or set some value. We're going to do that throughout this course in the upcoming modules. But one more thing you can do, for example, you may go ahead and hide the snack bar or play a sound. Whatever you want to do, it's up to you. But you have the uninitialization action trigger under your control whenever the component is initialized. Beautiful. Now let's move on to the next video where we will see how what we have done is reflected in the generated code. Locating components code is fairly straightforward. Let's go ahead and take a look at the generated code. Before doing that, so as a good practice again, I'm going to go back to my project and going to go to the branches and create a new commit and say components. Just to make sure whatever we have so far done, it's committed and saved. In fact, I'm going to go and actually also create a new version here. Beautiful. So now either I can go through the developer menu, download the code, or from CLI, or I can go back to my FlutterFlow desktop app and open my VS Code. All right, here is my VS Code. And if I open my Leap folder right now, there's a few things that is now appearing which it wasn't here. And the first one is the components. And as you can see, the product item card widget is under this one. Let me go back to App Builder for a second. And let me open the pages. What happens is that I have different folders, right? And the product item card does not belong to any folder at this point. And that's why every component that comes with no folders, it actually appears under components. However, if I open my profile, you'll see that I have profile avatar, for example. And if I go to the source code again, you'll see that if I'm under the profile, I'm going to have profile avatar here, which is going to be my component. And the components are appearing as a widget here. All right, let's take a look at the profile setting items that we also have the different parameters. If we look at the code, you will see that the parameters are in fact the parameters that we are passing to the class. Here is my class that I named it profile setting items, right? And then these are the parameters passed to this constructor. And one of them is going to be the onTap, the callback. And as you can see, it's coming as a function here. All right, let's scroll and see what else do we have here. So the first thing you're going to see is actually the initial state. And you'll see that the onComponent load action is going to appear in here. We had one action on initialization. So that's why it's now appearing here when a component is initialized or a class is created and the initial state is set. So if I now go a little bit further down to the build method, you will see that I have now different options. For example, for the icon, we're using the icon that is passed to this widget, the leading icon, and that is actually required as well. For the text, we're using the widget text or the default value, the title that we passed. And for the action, as you will see here on onPress, we're actually performing a profile item callback action. And that's exactly what I named this action. And it's just going to call my callback. And that's it. Let's actually go to the app builder and take a look at this one. I think this is very important to understand. So I'm going to select my icon, go to action flow, and you will see that this callback is just getting called. And here is my profile item callbacks. That's the name. All right, very good. We also did one more thing, and that was adding a unique identifier or unique ID, unique key for our components when they are in the list. And I'm going to open the page profile setting dynamic list. All right, that's it. All right, now the page is open. What are we looking for? We're looking for profile setting item widget or the component that we created, right? I'm just going to search for that. Profile setting item widget. All right, that's good. I find it. And if I go a little bit up, you see that I have a wrap with model because this is the widget and it needs to be wrapped with a model as we discussed before. And then the model is going to have exactly the ID that I'm passing here. The ID, that was the combined text of the index as well as the ID text. We're passing that to the get model because the get model on this profile setting item models is requiring a unique ID. Just wanted to show you how this unique ID is used.